Hey everybody, this one's about all prisoners are prisoners of war. Copies of these documents can be found in my private group at Yahoo called Administrating Your Public Servants. For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information shares, a DVD of over 50 searchable law dictionaries and other books and forms, contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extreme less desirable alternative, I can accept the IOUs, the commercial paper, the Federal Reserve notes, the PayPal gifts, checks, money orders, etc. Send me an email for particulars. Under the international law of warfare, all parties to a cause must appear by nom de guerre because an alien enemy cannot maintain an action during the war in his own name. And a mixed war is one which is made by one side by public authority and the other side by mere private persons. Okay, so it's all about warfare. All court cases are warfare. All commerce is warfare. Civil law, Roman civil law are convertible phrases meaning the same system of jurisprudence. That rule of action which every particular nation, commonwealth, or city is established peculiarly for itself, more properly called municipal law, distinguish it from the law of nature and from international law. And that's Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. See the martial law is coming from the United Nations video. See the international law as a subset of common law video. See the Roman cult slave scam video. See the slavery equals Roman cult video. See the all warfare is commerce and all commerce is warfare video. Every taxpayer is assessed to a trust having sufficient interest in preventing the abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of the court's prerogative jurisdiction. And a citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity operating as co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the public charitable trust, the constructive Sesticate Trust of U.S. Inc. under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debt of the USA and U.S. Inc. And that's a summary of 5 pages of congressional record dated June 13th, 1967. So the point being is that a U.S. citizen's a Sesticate Trust, and a Sesticate Trust is created by the Roman cult. Yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity. That's the Roman cult, folks. For when they were driven all their former holes, they devised a new method of conveyance by which the lands were granted not to themselves directly, but to nominal fiefs to the use of the religious houses, thus distinguishing between the possession and the use, and receiving the actual profits, while the season of the land remained in the nominal fief, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy. That's the Roman cult, folks, to be bound in conscience to account for his sesticate used for the rents and emoluments of the estate. That's taxes, folks. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. And that's Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, volume 2, under the definition of mort main. And so the point being is that it was the foundation of modern conveyancing in 1835, and it still is to this day. Slater's protestations to the effect that he derives no benefit from the United States government have no bearing on his legal obligation to pay income tax. Unless the defendant can establish that he's not a citizen of the United States, the IRS possesses authority to attempt to determine his federal tax liability. And this is D.C. Code, Chapter 56, Section 1617, located at 31 Stat 1432, and the legal estate to be in the Sesticate use. This is more D.C. Code, which was approved March 3rd, 1901 by the 56th Congress at 31 Stat 1189, and Section 2, where it says, be it further enacted that the interpretation and construction of said code, the following rules should be observed, namely, that the word person shall be held to apply to partnerships and corporations. And more D.C. Code talks about presumption of death. Okay, that's the Sesticate Trust. It's for a dead thing. And this is located at 31 Stat 1230. And it talks about the presumption of death. So that's the presumption that you're dead. Okay, that's the Sestake Trust. And then this is where it's codified. Title 15, United States Code, Section 44, under definitions. Corporation shall be deemed to include any company, trust, so-called Massachusetts Trust Association, incorporated or unincorporated, which is organized to carry on business for its own profit or that of its members, and has shares of capital or capital stock or certificates of interest, and it goes through the same definition, except it doesn't have shares of capital stock or certificates of interest. And so, did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? Don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to click on the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. And here's the front page of the channel, and notice the bell. And when you click the bell, a pop-up, you'll have to check a box saying you want to be notified. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? All prisoners are prisoners of war. But individuals, when acting as representatives of a collective group, cannot be said to be exercising their personal rights and duties, nor be entitled to their purely personal privileges, whether they assume the rights, duties, and privileges of the artificial entity or association over which they are agents or officers, and they are bound by its obligations. When you stand up there and say, I am the name, then you're agreeing to be, it's a contract. And did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? Whenever the Uniform Commercial Code creates a presumption with respect to a fact or provides that a fact is presumed, the trier of fact must find the existence of the fact unless and until the evidence is introduced that supports a finding of its non-existence. And that's UCC 1-206, presumptions. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? So they have all sorts of presumptions they make. And one of the presumptions is about signatures. In an action with respect to an instrument, the authenticity of an authority to make each signature on the instrument are admitted unless specifically denied in the pleadings. Okay, so they're forging your signature onto a contract, and then they presume that it's valid. And the following rules apply in an action on a certificated security against the issuer, and they're securitizing it and selling it on Wall Street. Unless specifically denied in the pleadings, each signature on a security certificate or in a necessary endorsement is admitted. If the effectiveness of a signature is put in issue, the burden of establishing effectiveness is on the party claiming under the signature, but the signature is presumed to be genuine and authorized. That's Uniform Commercial Code again. Announcing a subscription-based YouTube channel called Sovereignty International. The recommended cost of the subscription is currently $1.99 because it avoids the advertising only. Originally, when I set up this channel, I was planning on having some exclusive content, but after thinking about it, the only power that these New World Order Satanists have over us is because of their fraud and deception, and my agenda is to expose it all. And so then I can't think of anything that I want to put on there exclusively. I do have a couple things. I've got an Arlington private information share, and I have a video about how to do affidavits that are powerful. But that's about it. And there might be something in the future, but the only thing I can guarantee is that it won't have any advertising. So if you want to make a donation, $1.99 a month donation is certainly modest, but it is appreciated. And a whole bunch of people chipping in a little bit adds up after a while. And so anyways, I'm currently publishing 5 videos a week, and there was some people that had trouble finding the channel, so I have a link at the bottom. I've also got a link at the top. Somebody sent me $1.99, so I wasn't sure if it was a donation or if they wanted me to sign them up, and I just wanted to say that I have absolutely no control over people who are my subscribers. If you want to subscribe, you have to click the first start free trial button. I have no control of it. I can't even see all the subscribers. So you're going to have to click the start free trial button. I would expect that YouTube is probably going to want to have some payment arrangements and all sorts of stuff. So anyways, that's completely up to YouTube. I have no control over it at all. Anyways, the bottom line is yeah, you're going to have to do it that way. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. These Roman cult Satanist bar member whores masquerading as a judge forges their signature onto a contract and then presumes it's authorized and authentic. And who's going to call a judge a liar? And if you don't know that's what's going on, then how are you going to know to challenge it? That's how they're populating the prisons. Carl Lentz brought up the issue of forgery against CPS when they stole his son in his successful one-page lawsuit. See the Judicial Whores video. He, the convicted felon, which is the prisoner, actually, he, the prisoner, has, as a consequence of his crime, not only forfeited his liberty, but all his personal rights, except those which the law in its humanity has afforded him. He is, for the time being, a slave of the state. So they're literally selling you into slavery, and that's the reason they want to get rid of this nasty little problem about common law, because at common law, they'd be put to death over this. If a man be found stealing any of his brethren of the children of Israel, and maketh merchandise of him, or selleth him, then that thief shall die. Thou shalt put evil away from among you. And that's Deuteronomy 24:7. International law is a subset of canon law. International law started with the Roman cult. Unidroit stands for the International Institute for the Unification of Private Law. Unidroit is located about 100 yards from the Holy See. Unidroit controls and governs the Uniform Commercial Code. Through Unidroit, the Roman cult has seized control of all courts. The Roman cult's bar members are already all officers of the court. See Bar Members 1, 2, and 3 videos. Unidroit stands for the Unification of Private Law, and the website says that 63 countries have adopted it, and it's designed to be automatically implemented. Okay, so this Uniform Commercial Code, that's controlled and regulated by Unidroit. Canada and the United States have been signatories of the Unidroit Treaty for over 30 years. The Unidroit website says nothing about Texas or Arizona or any of the American states or the Canadian province. Therefore, it's applicable in the federal areas only. Unidroit covers negotiable instruments, civil procedure, secured transactions, legal status of women, maintenance obligations, contracts, banking law, and more. Okay, and this is all covered in the courts. The courts are all controlled and regulated by Unidroit. And commercial contracts, cultural property, franchising, and notice the header, Unidroit, International Institute for the Unification of Private Law, leasing, security interests, transport, banking law, capital markets. Why do you think that they want their commercial paper as payment for debts? Civil procedure, contracts, cultural property, franchising, hotel keepers, insurance, intellectual property, legal status of women, maintenance obligations, movement of persons, negotiable instruments. The International Institute for the Unification of Private Law also talks about the 1955 Benelux Treaty on compulsory insurance against civil liability in respect of motor vehicles, and the 1958 Convention concerning the recognition and enforcement of decisions relating to maintenance obligations towards children. So this all falls under Unidroit. There's the membership. And this is only some of the membership, okay? There's 63 countries. I only got the pages here of the ones that people will be watching. But it looks like Canada, Australia, the Commonwealth countries, most of South America, UK, United States, Russia, and so there's a lot more than that. There's 63 countries. All judges are actually clerks masquerading as the judges, which is bill priests, okay? So this would apply in any Unidroit country, okay? All prisoners are prisoners of war. Their black robes is a bill priest uniform. They routinely deny anything related to justice from happening because it's so good for business. They encourage their false flag operations and agent provocateurs because it's so good for business. They encourage the police state murders, assaults, kidnappings, and thefts because it's so good for business. Anything they do is a fraud and a lie because they're Satanists. And my contact information is sovereignty. My blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo. My YouTube profiles, I've got two of them, Sovereign Living and Sovereignty International. My Facebook community page, I deleted it due to censorship on the part of Facebook. My private group, Sovereignty International, is being deleted. My Yahoo private group is called Administrating Your Public Servants, and my Google private group is called Administrating Your Public Servants. And follow me on Twitter at EngineerWin. Anyways, there are no common law offenses in D.C. or the territories. Only those acts which Congress has forbidden with penalties for disobedience of its command are crimes. And under Texas law, there's no act or omission is a crime unless made so by statute. The Texas legislature can create an offense and in the same enactment provide exceptions to its application. Everything is an admiralty. This is all commercial warfare, okay? All prisoners are prisoners of war. A writ of error doth not lie upon a sentence in admiralty, but an appeal. And that's Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, under the definition of admiralty, but they're citing Book 4 of Coke's Institutes on the Laws of England, and that goes back to the 1500s. Appeals are an admiralty. It's called in a court of appeals. That's why it is called in a court of appeals. It's the same thing that precipitated the War of Independence. This is the taken from the causes and necessities for taking up arms. Statutes have been passed extending the courts of admiralty and vice-admiralty far beyond their ancient limits for depriving us of the accustomed and inestimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law and instead thereof to publish and order the use and exercise of the law martial, and for altering fundamentally the form of government established by charter. We saw the misery to which such despotism would reduce us. And so again, this is all martial law, and now this is taken from a book called The Non-Ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge H. Ella to the Utah Supreme Court, and in the case Diet versus Turner. And he says the same thing as what they talked about here in the causes and necessities for taking up arms. He says the same thing, only in a different way. In the meantime, civil law was the form of law imposed in the Roman Empire, which was largely, if not wholly, governed by martial law rule. Equity has always been understood to follow the law. To have superior equity is to turn things on their head. This is exactly what happens when martial law is imposed. If equity is a law, then it follows its own course rather than following the common law, thereby destroying the common law and leaving what's called equity in its place. This is a letter from the Georgia Department of Driver Services. If you want to pause the video and read it, you're welcome to. But the point I want to take is up at the top of the second page, and we're going to have the text on that here in a second, and point out. But this is the 3-page letter, and it shows the signature. And so the top says the statute creates a rebuttable presumption of residency for anyone who meets the following criteria. Now, any statute creates a rebuttable presumption of residency, okay? But it's for anyone who meets the following criteria, and that's not what I'm concerned about, but it says, however, no such person shall be considered a resident for purposes of this chapter unless such person is either a United States citizen or an alien with legal authorization from the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service, and is signed by the General Counsel for the Georgia Department of Driver Services. And so it creates a presumption. So that's what the Federal Tax Lien Act does too, okay? And the definitions: motor vehicle means a self-propelled vehicle which is registered for highway use under the laws of any state or foreign country. Okay, so as long as it's registered, then they presume that it's a motor vehicle. Under Title 18, United States Code, Section 31, it has to be carrying passengers or property for hire. But this is a Federal Tax Lien Act of 1966. It creates a presumption. And then it talks about securities and about bonds, debentures, notes, commercial paper, money. Okay, so those create presumptions. International law rule adopted for areas under federal legislative jurisdiction federalizes state civil law, including common law. The rule serves to federalize not only statutory but the common law of the state. State and federal venue discuss the civil laws effective in an area of exclusive federal jurisdiction. Okay, so where are these areas of exclusive federal jurisdiction? But let's read this further. Our federal law, notwithstanding their derivation from state laws, and this is actually taken from jurisdiction over federal areas within the states. Report of the Interdepartmental Committee for the Study of Jurisdiction over Federal Areas within the states, Part 2, a text of the law of legislative jurisdiction submitted to the Attorney General and transmitted to the President, June 1957, page 158 through 165. So where are these federal legislative jurisdictions? Well, they're everywhere. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states were not included in the catalog of controversies over which Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington District of Columbia, and through their plenary power, that's military dictatorship, folks, nationally covers those citizens, even when one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. Again, if you're a U.S. citizen, you have no rights. And that's National Mutual Insurance Company of the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company, U.S. Supreme Court, 1948. CubeYard.com. For great custom websites, domain names, and hostings, go to CubeYard.com. Use coupon code CY172 for 20% off your first order. CubeYard.com, your source for websites, domain names, and hosting. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. A penal action is an action on a penal statute, an action for recovery of penalty given by statute, where an action is founded entirely upon a statute and the only object of it is to recover a penalty or forfeiture. Such action is a penal action. So they have all these penal statutes. There's Texas Penal Code, there's penal codes and penal statutes all over the place. Anyways, the words and penal, penalty, and offense. Okay, these are all words they like to use. The words penal and penalty in their strict and primary sense denote a punishment, whether corporal or pecuniary, imposed and enforced by the state for a crime or offense against its laws. The noun penalty is defined forfeiture, or to be forfeited for non-compliance with an agreement. Okay, so they assault you with one of their contracts. Remember, we talked about that under the Uniform Commercial Code. They forge your signature onto a contract and sell you into slavery. A penal action is one founded entirely on statute and brought within the sole object of recovering a penalty or forfeiture imposed as a punishment for a specific offense, while a remedial action is one brought to obtain compensation or indemnity. And again, remember, the judges are all bought and paid for clerks masquerading as judges. It's a kangaroo court. A penal action is a civil suit brought for the recovery of a statutory forfeiture when inflicted as punishment for an offense against the public. Again, this is all applicable to U.S. citizens. Such actions are civil actions on the one hand, closely related to criminal prosecutions, and on the other to actions for private injuries in which the party aggrieved may by statute recover punitive damages. That's why the bail priest sits up there, and when you ask him what the nature of the action is, he'll say it's quasi-criminal. And so, and now another little diversion. Check out my other videos, Banks Are Thieves 1, 2, and 3, Churchianity Series, Bankrupt Corporate So-Called Governments, Bar Members 1, 2, and 3, Do-It-Yourself, How Not to Volunteer for the Selective Service in the Draft, Martial Laws here, Do-It-Yourself No Income Tax, Do-It-Yourself No Sales Tax, Do-It-Yourself Traffic Stop 1 and 2, and Do-It-Yourself Free Mail 1 and 2, Do-It-Yourself Kangaroo Courts 1 through 9. So get us out of the UN now. The United Nations is owned and operated by the Crown and their Roman cult handlers. See, the Crown is owned and operated by the Roman cult video. See, the United States is a Crown colony and the Crown owns and operates the United Nations 1 and 2 videos. The Unidroid is coming from the United Nations. See the Roman cult slave scam video. The United Nations maintains the International Law Collection, which is also coming from the Roman cult. They're using the Roman cult's international law rule to assault us with their fraudulent, fictitious Sestakay Trust U.S. citizen slave. This is the Vatican's Holocaust. This is a sensational account of the most horrifying religious massacre in the 20th century by Avril Manhattan, who was a Knight of Malta. He lived 1914 to 1990. Avril Manhattan was the world's foremost authority on Roman Catholicism and politics. The resident of London during World War II, he operated a radio station called Radio Freedom, broadcasting to occupied Europe. He was the author of over 20 books, including the bestseller The Vatican and World Politics, twice Book of the Month, and going through 57 editions. He was a Great Briton who risked his life daily to expose some of the darkest secrets of the papacy. His books were number one on the Forbidden Index for the past 50 years. And then the editor's note from 1986. In 2006, the record is now 70 years. I guess it's now 80 years. Anyways, the preface to the American edition, the Vatican's Holocaust, is not a misnomer, an accusation, or even less a speculation. It is an historical fact. Rabid nationalism and religious dogmatism were its two main ingredients. During the existence of Croatia as an independent Catholic state, over 700,000 men, women, and children perished. Many were executed, tortured, starved, died of starvation, buried alive, or were burned to death. Hundreds were forced to become Catholic. Catholic padres ran concentration camps. Catholic priests were officers of the military corps which committed such atrocities. 700,000 in a total population of a few million proportionally would be as if 1/3 of the USA population had been exterminated by a Catholic militia. What has been gathered in this book will vindicate the veracity of these facts. Dates, names, places, as well as photos were there to prove them. They should become known to the American public, not to foster vindictiveness, but to warn them of the danger which racialism and sectarianism, when applied with religious intolerance, can bring to any contemporary nation, whether in Europe or the New World. This work should be assessed without prejudice as a lesson, but even more vital as a warning for the future of the Americans, beginning with that of the USA. And an editor's note, an armed Serbia could have easily prevented this Holocaust. Thank God for the Second Amendment to the Constitution, which guarantees the right to bear arms. Freedom of religion and an armed citizenry go hand in hand as the only guarantee that this won't happen in the U.S. And a further editor's note, it is the Vatican's one world government that doesn't want you to have the right to own arms or to use any means to defend yourself. And so the Vatican one world government is embodied in the United Nations today. This is all coming from the Roman cult. The Roman cult is responsible for all slavery. See the international law video. All bar members, judges, and lawyers are agents of the Roman cult. See Bar Members 1, 2, and 3 video. See the Judicial Horrors video. See the Void Judgments video. Roman cult equals slavery. Roman cult equals warfare. The Clearfield Doctrine. Governments descend to the level of a mere private corporation and take on the characteristic of a mere private citizen, where private corporate commercial paper and securities is concerned. For purposes of suits, such corporations and individuals are regarded as entities entirely separate from government. This is why you cannot pay their extortion. Everything they do is a fraud. A U.S. citizen's a fraud. Commercial paper's a fraud. All mortgages are a fraud. They get you to participate in their fraud, then they assault you with one of their so-called contracts, and they sell you into slavery. Everybody in prison was sold into slavery. Anyways, that's the end of this one. Thanks for watching, and spread the word. All prisoners are prisoners of war, and it's all commercial warfare coming from the Roman cult. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.